Hello, and welcome to this week's Movie Math, where we have the second major box office hit of the month to come out of seemingly nowhere. Oh my gosh, I'm sure Demon Slayer fans are like, I could have told you, and you did tell us actually. But The Conjuring came out of absolutely nowhere. I mean, obviously we all know that horror is hot. I mean, these aren't like blindsides, but they're pretty big surprises. And the reason I bring it up is because Hollywood used to know its audience extremely well. They had all these formulas and research they've done over the years, market research, polling, and they could pretty much have an idea of where a movie was going to open. But again, as I said, this is the second time in a row that they have, pleasantly been very wrong. They're like, we'll take your money. Thank you. But I think it has to do with, I've always felt that Hollywood executives were the kind of people who didn't sample their own product. I think you'll find a lot of people who work in the movie business, shockingly, are not customers. I hope that changes. But they've never been this out of sync with audiences. I think you can see this a little bit in politics too, and other areas, where the powers that be, maybe it's because also, we have a phenomenon which we've discussed of a gray ceiling, where older generations refuse to retire or even make room for newer generations to rise into the upper levels of the executive ranks. Maybe there's someone down below being like, I knew this was going to be big, but I'm still stuck down here as an associate producer or executive. So I think Hollywood's going to have to, we'll see. Hollywood, everyone's always reluctant to give up their position, as we're seeing across the board. But I think it's really interesting, and I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this as well. So yes, Hollywood is having its best September ever, because we're now 2 weekends in, and Hollywood has posted 2 of the biggest openings of all time for the month. Oh my gosh, I told you there was gold in September. I've been saying that Tinseltown is missing out on Labor Day weekend as a release date for a long time now. But I have to say, Ketchup Entertainment heard me, and they're putting Coyote versus Acme there next year. And you can find out the rest of the movie set for 2026, summer 2026, by the way, and my latest video that just went up on Friday. Can Hollywood keep this momentum going for the rest of the month? Maybe forever? I mean, everything ebbs and flows, but it would be sweet if September could be this way throughout the month. Like, we're all feeling the buzz for One Battle After Another, right? Warner Brothers is doing a phenomenal job launching this film. Very early social media embargo, which has started the chatter. The review embargo is going to lift on Wednesday, which I think is going to create even more chatter. And then it's going to open the weekend. I mean, usually social media embargoes and review embargoes are pretty close to week of release. But when you do an extended scenario like this, I mean, also film festivals are a factor because the movie's playing at film festivals. But it's to build up buzz. And Warner Brothers is doing a beautiful job with a film that went from something nobody was going to see in theaters and people online were laughing at the ad campaign for it to suddenly something that might actually be a big hit. I thought that in light of recent real-world events, they might delay the film, but maybe they're going to lean into the situation because One Battle After Another, as we'll discuss on Wednesday when the review embargo lifts, is an extremely politically charged film. We'll talk about it on Wednesday, but we'll see. It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for them. Now, I don't think anyone is really feeling the heat for this coming weekend's Him, and it's a Jordan Peele film, but it's not directed by Jordan Peele. And then Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey. Despite Margot Robbie's best efforts to bring the heat on the red carpet last week, that wasn't on the film festival circuit, but I believe Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey is on the film festival circuit. But anyway, nobody was really feeling any heat for The Conjuring 4, and, outside of its fan base, for Demon Slayer. So Demon Slayer fans were screaming from the rooftops that, yes, this movie was going to be a big hit. And if you looked at pre-sales, you were like, they might be right. But I don't think anybody predicted it would be as big a hit as it is. And we're going to go into the depths on this number in a moment. But you know what? What's so interesting to me is that we found, it's like, Hollywood's always, drilling for oil. And by oil, I mean audience members, fans. Matrix opened up VFX heavy films, and that's why they went the comic book route, because they were like, What could use a lot of VFX? What could have people flying around like Neo? I know, comic books. And so comic books have been a tremendous wealth, but they've almost tapped that well dry. So video games is emerging, but then also, what about anime? Is anime another scenario that Hollywood could utilize if they do it correctly? I mean, it's very interesting. But there's one little hiccup to keep an eye on. Yes, September 2025 is going gangbusters. But are these true hits or one-offs? A sobering question as Hollywood enters its events era, right? I mean, an event means just like one weekend, whereas Hollywood movies make their money by playing, ideally for weeks on end. So like The Conjuring 4, 70% drop in its second weekend. And at the rate it's going, it's not going to match the box office totals of those other September heavyweights that it stands side by side with on the openings chart. And while Hollywood rolls around in all this cash from Demon Slayer, they have noticed out of the corner of their eye that there's almost no walk-up business for Demon Slayer, which means, does the movie have any coattails? Like that means that pretty much everyone who wants to see it has seen it. It's like it's not inspiring other people to go and buy a ticket, I think is what that potentially signals. I mean, look, this is all still great news because these movies were cheap to make. They were cheap to actually produce. $55 million budget for The Conjuring, only $15 to $30 million for Demon Slayer. That's an insanely small budget for an animated movie when you consider how much Hollywood animated movies cost. If I were a Hollywood animation studio or someone who owned one, I'd be like, why are they making this for so little money and making so much money? I don't know. I mean, like, look, is Demon Slayer going to make $1 billion? Probably not. Although it's making a lot of money. But it's just, these are interesting conversations to have. So what's more, on top of being cheap to produce, they're cheap to market. They can heavily rely on almost exclusively digital marketing campaigns, which are much more cost effective. For Demon Slayer, Crunchyroll just had to stick an ad in front of almost only their own content, and they reached the audience they needed to reach. So like weapons, these are all incredible returns on investment for Hollywood. So what's better for Tinseltown, right? Movies like this or $200 million blockbusters that require another $100 million to advertise and these days barely break even? Well, the answer is both. Like, we're basically going back to cable, baby, as we've all noticed. We're like, streaming is just becoming more expensive cable. So wouldn't it be nice if Hollywood would stop only making tentpoles and remember why they called them tentpoles in the first place? There's only a few of them that hold up the tent for everybody else. So it would be wonderful to see studios going back to only making a couple of tentpoles a year to hold up the tent so that smaller movies can thrive. And you just have to be smarter about the smaller movie that you're making. And that maybe includes animated movies. Maybe not every animated movie needs to be a huge spend, and it can still have a huge return on its investment. And it looks like small movies are going to carry more than carry the fall until the blockbusters get here for the holidays. All right, so we've been talking big picture. Let's drill down into this weekend specifically. Speaking of this weekend, the Emmys are tonight, and you can watch them along with me. I will be live tweeting the ceremony, so be sure to follow me over on Twitter/X, whatever you want to call it. And then I'm going to go live right after the telecast, like a couple of minutes after the telecast wraps, to go over not just the show itself, Nate Bargatze is hosting, but also all the big winners and losers. Will the Pit beat out Severance? I think there's a small chance, maybe even a medium chance that it will. Will the studio truly sweep the comedy category? With almost the entire cast of The White Lotus nominated in the supporting categories, who will actually win? And will Andor win anything? It has a couple of major nominations. I think its best bet is in writing and directing. A win's a win, baby. So if you hit that subscribe button and the little bell, you'll get a 30-minute heads up before I go live tonight. Also, this week, my One Battle After Another review goes up on Wednesday, as I said, and then also my Gen V review drops tomorrow. So again, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of those videos. All right, so I'm not a Demon Slayer fan. I didn't review it because I couldn't even go through the trailer. I mean, I had to watch the trailer because it played in front of weapons. That's what it played in front of. When I went to see Weapons, I missed the press screening, so I had to go see Weapons with the general audience. Great experience. And Demon Slayer played in front of it. Very long trailer, and I was like, oh boy, not for me. And at 2 hours and 45 minutes, I just was like, I'll talk about it in other ways, like this. While I don't understand it, I'm thrilled to see the movie business thriving. And that might be why we're saying, like, for instance, if you didn't see Demon Slayer this weekend, are you considering maybe going to see an almost 3-hour anime movie because it's such a big hit? Or are you just like, oh, that's awesome. All right, that's cool, but you're not going to go see it. That's the concern, I think. All right, so anyway, I'm very excited, though, for what this means for adult animation in the West on the big screen, which I have been championing. Adult animation is doing great on streaming, and a lot of this content I adore. But not so great at the multiplex, although War for Rohirrim, awful movie. It didn't do well because it sucked. So Demon Slayer's huge success is very exciting for, say, Paramount's upcoming Airbender movie. I'm going to be there first in line. I'm so excited for that. And what about Hollywood's attempts to make a live-action Akira movie? That's what I was thinking about when I saw this headline. Warner Brothers, they just let the rights go. Oh my God. Why? Because they've been paying for the rights for this for over 20 years and nothing had come of it. So they were like, Zazie likes to save some money. So even when he's making money. So he was like, oh, we're not going to continue with that. Uh-oh. Because, you've got Demon Slayer, Squid Game, K-pop Demon Hunters, One Piece, all huge hits. I think Warner Brothers should have held on to the Akira rights. And someone, now that they're available, should snap them up right away. Snap those rights up, baby. So who should snap them up? Christopher Nolan. Like a decade ago, his name was rumored to be somebody who was interested in making an Akira trilogy. Maybe he would direct it. Maybe he'd produce it. Which one do you think he should do? I think he should direct an Asian cast. I think that would be the perfect combination to make something that would have global appeal. I think it might have global appeal anyway, but that would, I think, put it its best advantage. Oh my goodness. I'd be like, you don't need to do Bond, do Akira. That would be incredible. I think he's a perfect fit with that kind of brand, right? And I think, again, it would help to allow the live action version, to be authentic. So we'll see. Also it would give him a chance to stick it to Warner Brothers, who just let go of the rights, who he, of course, famously fell out with and now is over at Universal. I guarantee you, though, every studio development executive is going to be taking a hard look at anime now. I sure would. I'd be telling them to. If I was a development exec, I'd be taking a look. If I had a development team, I'd say you better be looking at anime. And how did you miss out on Demon Slayer? All right, too bad Hollywood messed up Ghost in the Shell. Maybe they can take another crack at it. Now, as we analyze Demon Slayer's success and see if we maybe could repeat it, it's important to note that this is not the first Demon Slayer movie, and the other ones didn't come anywhere near the opening of this film. Although some of them, I looked into it, because I know I've seen the Demon Slayer name before. Some of the other films were compilation films. I believe 2 of them were compilations, and 2 of them, including this one, are new original anime. But also, on that note, Demon Slayer started out as a manga, then became an anime television series, right, that adapted that manga. And so this franchise overall is almost a decade old. So it took time to get here. Like Marvel didn't wake up and produce the $2 billion or almost, hugely successful Avengers Endgame. They took a decade to get there as well. Ooh, Airbender's been around for 2 decades. I'm very, very excited for that movie. This is very exciting. But Airbender, for all its Eastern influences, is still a Hollywood franchise. Demon Slayer is a Japanese franchise. So let's talk about another fascinating and amazing development. This new film, by the way, hit Japan back in July and quickly became one of the highest grossing films of all time there, and is now already at almost $400 million worldwide. And remember, it only cost about $15 to $30 million to make. Ka-ching! That puts a Japanese film at the #1 spot, really, with a huge number at the North American box office. Now, of course, over the years, other films from outside the United States have connected with North American audiences. Some have even gone on to win Oscars. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, well, we'll see what happens with Demon Slayer, but it remains the most successful at the box office to date but it never got to number one. I don't believe any film made outside the United States has. So this is a huge game changer. And again, I think streaming has helped open this door, popularizing not only adult animation, but also non-English language content worldwide. Also, so has social media. A lot of people have gotten really used to subtitles. It used to be people wouldn't watch something that was in black and white or had subtitles. Some of you still have a problem with black and white. You're missing some great content. But most people don't have a problem with subtitles anymore. But I will say that over the weekend here in North America, Demon Slayer was offered in both its original language and as an English dub, which I find fascinating because for decades that's been the case everywhere outside the United States. The United States has gatekept from overseas films because the producers in Hollywood wanted the opportunity to remake those films themselves. So they wouldn't allow the films to become popular here, except a couple that, as I've noted, have slipped through the cracks over the years. But now people are, these films are finally getting directly to the audience, and people are seeing them the way people overseas have watched Hollywood movies for so long. You have the choice, original language or the dub of your native language. And I'm curious, everyone, North America and everywhere on the globe, what do you prefer when you go to see a movie? Do you prefer to watch it in its original language, or do you prefer a dub in your native language? Then it gets even more fascinating because Demon Slayer had a very diverse audience. The Hispanic Latino audience drove this one as well, just like they drove The Conjuring to box office victory last weekend. And then the film had a very solid balance between male and female viewers. Comic book content, video game content tends to skew more male. But this one, pretty good. I think that's a pretty good balance considering. But I will say that Julian Fellows really learned his lesson here and worked hard to give his American version of Downton Abbey, The Gilded Age, a much more diverse cast and to recognize a more robust, look at history. Although it's interesting, The Gilded Age and the new Downton Abbey movie, I saw the new Downton Abbey movie yesterday, they both cover some of the same social issues. And you can see things that are happening today reflected in this new Downton Abbey movie, which I thought was really, it was good. I hadn't planned to see it in theaters, but I needed a movie to go see, and I ended up having a really nice time. But I think that a more diverse storytelling situation in The Gilded Age is one of the things that has helped that show really explode on HBO with its last season. And people I've talked to who watch The Gilded Age come from all different walks of life, which is great for that show. On that note, are Gilded Age movies in our future? Right? It will be interesting to see if any other prestige shows take a page from Downton Abbey's playbook. And that while there are no more seasons of Downton Abbey, the story still continues with the same cast every couple of years. It's turning out to be very effective. So which prestige show would you like to see maybe take this approach? Is this truly the last Downton Abbey movie? I doubt it. It might be called the grand finale, but what about Downton Abbey Encore? After the movie ended, I was like, that might take more than 3 years this time, but they're definitely going to make another one. The movie has amazing audience scores, and it actually opened a bit bigger than the last one. Plus, I'm sure these are huge on digital and streaming. Also, the movies here as well are not particularly expensive to make. The budgets have gone up, but I would guess that's largely to convince the cast to keep coming back. I would maybe switch to points at this point. I'd be like, these can't get much more expensive or you're not going to get any money because I won't be able to make them anymore. So how would you like no money? All right, so as for how would you negotiate Downton Abbey going forward? As for the long walk, Hollywood's feeling is that Demon Slayer perhaps drank its milkshake. But I don't think that's it. As many of you know, I did not care for this movie. I don't think it's a particularly cinematic story, and I think Francis Lawrence did not make it cinematic when he directed it. Some people love this movie. For sure, I've seen it. I've seen you guys. I've seen some of the comments online. But you can't argue that these audience scores are much weaker than Demon Slayer and Downton Abbey's. But I think with all this in mind, 11.5 is actually a very respectable opening. And we'll see how it holds up in the weeks ahead. And, it might end up finding an audience down the line on digital. I saw some people saying that they thought it was maybe going to get nominated for awards, which I thought was adorable. I'm glad you like the movie so much, but I'd be really surprised. But I don't know, stranger things have happened, but I think it's unlikely. The current trend of classic films on the big screen continues. I wonder how long this trend will last. I find it fascinating. But it also does play into the whole event era that we're discussing today, right? Like, what's more of an event than, hey, let's all go see this classic movie together this weekend? And sure enough, Toy Story, the original Toy Story, managed to place 5th, although I told you it was too early for a Toy Story 5 trailer. I don't know how, I think the rumor mill is getting a little out of control. Well, Spinal Tap, that came back with a new movie 40 years later. And well, it seems they only have a few fans left. And by the way, also, Sound of Music got into the top 10 as well. That's nuts. That's 3 basically very old films in the top 10. As for holdovers, yes, The Conjuring 4 had a big drop, but it still managed to still be second. It only fell 1 spot. And it's already at 332 worldwide. In the event era, we make our money and run. And that puts it as the second most successful film in the franchise behind only The Nun. I can't believe the most successful film in the Conjuring franchise isn't one of the main Conjuring movies. I'm rooting for The Conjuring 4 for that alone. Hamilton, though, another event release, fell almost 80% in its second weekend. Meanwhile, Weapons and Freakier Friday, which both came out together 6 weekends ago, continued to do pretty well, although Weapons is already on digital, while Freakier Friday is not and has no date in sight, as Disney remains the only studio to stick to longer theatrical runs. Then this next bit of news makes me very sad. Very, very sad. All right, so over on streaming, starting with Nielsen per usual, for early mid-August, we've got the debut of Alien Earth. Oh my God, what a clunker! It debuted with 2 episodes, both about an hour long, and it couldn't even make the overall chart. What's worse, it's pretty low down on the originals chart. Now, you might be like, well, this is Hulu, right? It's unusual for them to chart. But Alien Earth is a very expensive show, and this is pretty freaking low. And by the way, the first 2 episodes was the one night that it trended. It trended #1, and this is the best it could do on the ratings charts. I shudder to think what its viewership is going to look like as we go forward if this is where it's starting on the one big night that it had. What are Peacemaker's numbers going to look like? But at least, again, Peacemaker is an inexpensive show, whereas Alien Earth is not. I mean, does this mean there's no chance of a second season? I'm scared. It looks really bad. Any chance some of you are maybe waiting to binge it? Oh, man. At least Leanne got renewed. They already built those sets. The Hunting Wives also got renewed for those of you who like that show. So thank you, Netflix. I feel really bad for Alien Earth. Darn it! All right, so wait till you see the finale of season 1. We'll talk about it when it happens. But with this news in mind, it becomes a little bit funny. All right, so otherwise on Nielsen, K-pop Demon Hunters continues to dominate in the movie space, while Wednesday, in its second week for part 1, because remember, Nielsen, it's a month ago, this is the first full week on the streamer. And as you can see, it's still doing quite well. But then, the other shoe dropped. So, while Nielsen bundles all the seasons of a show together when calculating its viewership, so, if people are catching up, that goes into the calculations, Netflix, I think, has a little bit more of an accurate charting, and then it separates the seasons. But it revealed something not so good this time. So, and then, by the way, they don't separate it by parts. So, all right. So, when Wednesday this past week returned for the second half of season 2, it fell by 50% in terms of viewership. Oh, news! It was supposed to go up considerably. It should have been more than double. Because what should have happened is that everybody who watched the first half should have come back to finish the season, and then they should have been joined by everybody who was waiting to binge everything all at once. So how did this happen? Well, here's my theory, and I'd be curious to hear your own thoughts down below. First off, part 1 was pretty weak, and since Netflix doesn't allow advanced reviews or even social media reactions, none of us who got the episodes in advance could tell you in advance that part 2 was worth tuning into. So, Netflix, I mean, it seems to be working for them most of the time, but I still think Netflix has a weird strategy when it comes to social media and review embargoes. All right, then splitting the season in two, I think sure has backfired. Either fans were upset and chose not to come back to send a message to Netflix. Either they lost interest, right? Just because, maybe they forgot, or, they mean to circle back, or again, they thought part one wasn't as strong. And then, they didn't stick around to find out if it got better. And then three, they released it the first week of September, right after Labor Day, which was a really difficult weekend. They announced Superman 2 then, and that had a hard time getting people to pay attention. People are swamped with real life activities like going back to school and work and getting back into the swing of things post-summer. And so I think that debuting the second half might have just been a very poor release date. I really think it was a mix of all those things. And I'm curious, did you go back to watch part 2 of season 2 of Wednesday? And if you did, why? And if not, why not? All in all, though, one has to wonder if this will make Netflix rethink their 3-part drop that they have planned for Stranger Things 5 on all the major holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. I think they're nuts to drop it on Thanksgiving. People are super busy between Thanksgiving and Christmas. Hollywood doesn't even release any, the movies the weekend after Thanksgiving. That's always a breather because they know everybody's so swamped. They want to give them a chance to catch up on movies. I think for streaming, the ideal spot is between Christmas and New Year's, when people have a ton of free time at that point, but still aren't going back to school or work, really. Squid Game, speaking of Netflix, Squid Game Season 2 took advantage of that with the December 26th drop last year and did amazing numbers there. I think I would like Stranger Things to drop all at once on December 26th. What do you think? Especially now that you've experienced the Wednesday division into 2 parts, what do you think of dividing Stranger Things into 3 parts? All right, then with movies, while K-pop Demon Hunters, it slid a little bit. It's no longer number 1, but it's very close. Very close. But it's not slowing down. It continues to average about 25 million views a week. And that means it's about to pass 300 million views. It's going to sail past 300 million views. And one has to wonder, if it's going 25 million a week, it could pass 400 million views. How high is this thing going to get? That's incredible. And then as for Thursday Murder Club, that's nowhere near that kind of viewership, but it's holding up okay. Again, maybe this isn't expensive enough and a prestige enough of a project that we'll get that sequel. Then on digital, with Apple's charts, Weapons is number 1. Remember here on Movie Math, I was saying, I can't believe we told everyone to go and see Weapons in theaters, and they said, no thanks, we're going to wait to watch it on digital. And they did! And it's propelled the movie to number 1 over some very strong competition. But on that note, I do want to point out that Warner Brothers, with an assist from Apple, has the top 3 movies on the digital chart this week, finding great success in copying Universal's playbook of quickly sending movies to digital. Universal has 2 movies here, Jurassic World Rebirth still in the top 10, and Paramount has 2 movies here as well. And Ballerina, speaking of long runs on digital, it's still in the top 10. I hope it gets a sequel. I really liked this movie. Would you like to see a sequel to Ballerina, or should it consider itself lucky and Lionsgate should quit while it's ahead and find another way to extend the John Wick franchise? As for this coming week, there's a surprising amount of stuff coming out. So on the big screen, we've got him and A Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey. Again, can they keep this September box office momentum going? And there's another classic hitting theaters, this time Apollo 13, returning in IMAX and taking up a lot of showtimes from him on IMAX screens. So what's happening with the Dolby screens? Well, at first it looked like a Big, Beautiful Journey, Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey was going to get it, and him was going to get IMAX. But then Apollo 13 came and messed this all up. So I think they're still deciding. It's still up in the air at AMC Lincoln Square. They haven't had Dolby tickets go on sale yet. And in other theaters, I'm seeing him and Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey split Dolby. But how did him get the 4:45 showing instead of the other way around? That to me is nuts. I'm sure that's what they're fighting about at AMC Lincoln Square. I'm sure him wants that prime nighttime showing. Then on digital, big week for Sydney Sweeney fans as Americana drops on Tuesday and Eden on Friday. As for streaming movies, Elio comes to Disney Plus on Wednesday. I hope people give that movie a chance if they didn't in theaters. It's really, really good. While Hulu has Swiped, the origin story of dating app Bumble, on Friday. Finally, with shows, big week here as well. Tomorrow, the entire new season 13 of Futurama drops on Hulu, while on Tuesday, Peacock continues Love Island Mania with Love Island Games, and Disney Plus brings back its own reality competition juggernaut, Dancing with the Stars. Is that Steve Irwin's son? It is! Then on Wednesday, Prime Video drops the first 3 episodes of Gen V. Again, reviews for that go up tomorrow at noon, while The Morning Show returns to Apple TV. Thursday, Reasonable Doubt starts a new season on Hulu, and Netflix drops Black Rabbit. I tried to watch this. I mean, are you kidding me? Jason Bateman and Jude Law together? I couldn't click on it fast enough. And then I couldn't click off of it fast enough. I couldn't get through the first episode. If you liked Task, you might like Black Rabbit. But if you didn't like Task, which I also couldn't finish the first episode of, you're probably not going to like Black Rabbit. Then I'm sorry, I forgot to mention Task last week. That also just started. While on Friday, Netflix has a new animated series for adults from Rick and Morty writer Matt Roller. I hope he's one of the good ones. Haunted Hotel. That has like a pretty solid, not like a super all-star cast, but Will Forte and Jimmy Simpson do some of the voices on there, which is, kind of piques my interest, but I don't know if it piques it enough for me to actually watch it. All right, and that's this week's Movie Math. What have you been watching? What do you plan to watch? And again, do you think September can keep this box office wave going? Share those thoughts down below, subscribe today, and of course, as always, you can check out some more videos right now.